so sweet. Volume 3. I don't know if anybody remembers, but I had a really hard time finding the omnibus for it. And my mom loves me, so she paid for it from Amazon for me because it was stupid expensive. But I own it, which is nice because now I'll have a set and it won't look weird. So, before I was reading them like individually from each little section. I decided to stop doing that so that I could have two more of these things left to do. Um, so yeah, volume 3 is The Calling, Changeling, and Strife. Uh, yeah. So for The Calling, I like it clear that none of the journal entries make sense to me. I don't know who they are. I'm sure their names were mentioned, but I don't read them. I'm sure they're important to the story. I don't read them. Morgan has a dream. The Magic Council gets worried. So we have a trip to New York because her birth parents live there. And yeah, Hunter is doing council sanctioned legwork. Morgan is being curious. Hunter's leaving her out of everything. And I don't understand why, because a lot of it targets her. So if they would just tell her, then maybe these things would go better. I don't know. Bree's whole situation I find annoying, so her real dad is in New York at the time, so he like meets her and saves her from being killed, and they end up going back to Widow Vale, Widow's Peak. I don't remember what it's called, but she ends up breaking up with Hunter for a little bit because he's being annoying. So also because she thinks she's evil. So there's also that. In Changeling, I don't blame Morgan spiraling. She just learned about magic like a year ago, and now she has to deal with all of this. No one has any sympathy for magic. It's like what I said for Ashes of Gold with Rue. It's not her fault that she doesn't know these things. Actively leaving her out of them is not going to help her situation. But they do it, and they act all justified about it. And it's like, but you're not, though. Whatever. Communication errors are my least favorite trope when everything could be solved by just sitting down and having a conversation, a real one. So her dad comes to town. She also has a half brother, but he wasn't. She has like a whole half family, and he wasn't great to them because Morgan's mom was like his soulmate or whatever. She didn't want him. She ended up having Morgan. No, she had Morgan with him, but her husband, Maeve was her name. Maeve's husband thought that Morgan was his, so at least that's the impression that I get. Um, yeah, he wasn't a good dad to her half siblings and all of that. Um, they want Morgan. The council suggests that Morgan puts like a tagger thingy on her dad, and then they can track him and they can get him and he won't be a threat anymore. And they think that the magic wave will stop if they do that. So, Hunter's against it. Morgan doesn't care. Morgan ends up hanging out with her dad. It's called Changeling because she can turn into a wolf. She ends up being able to get the tagger onto her dad, so that's great. Um, and then Strife, her adoptive family still annoys me. Nine books in, and we finally have a magic tutor. I understand why not in the first three, but once Hunter showed up and she was on their side, they should have gotten her a magic tutor, but whatever. Um, the drama is just high school drama, but it annoys me, and the magic tutor is too much. Her grades end up falling. They have to rein in her powers. But the weirdness with her magic isn't her fault. They end up catching. They end up catching her dad, and Hunter can now check leads on his parents because he thinks that his parents might be alive. Her adoptive family annoys me because they're still so bitter that she's interacting with people who knew her real family. I've been interacting with adoptees a lot on TikTok and like watching their TikToks and like listening to their stories and stuff like that. Like, if you think that adopting a child is like a charity to the child and they should always be grateful for it and never want to seek out their real parent, not real, their biological parents, their genetic code parents, you're a terrible person. And also, just on a separate note, if there is something in that child's genetic code that could be detrimental to their health, they should probably know about it, and thus seeking out the carriers of the two halves of their genetic code isn't always a bad thing. Sometimes it's not about emotions, sometimes it's about knowing what's wrong with you when you have a genetic disorder, but you're adopted. Like, I don't know. I sympathize with adoptees a lot. So just because their struggle, life is a struggle, and more people should sympathize with them because then maybe the adoption industry wouldn't be considered an industry. um, yeah, I have a lot of strong feelings about adoptees and people not getting their rights. I have a lot of strong feelings about human rights and people not getting their human rights. Adoptees deserve to know who their genetic materials are. I like calling it that because not everybody has a good relationship with their biological family. So, their genetic materials. um, the series is 15 books long, and I just passed the halfway point, more or less, and the plot feels resolved. So, those other two, I do believe that there is a baby at some point. I think Hunter ends up getting her pregnant. Not saying that that's a bad thing or anything like that. I just don't fully remember. Brie annoys me because anyone who thinks all relationships end in hurt piss me off. I got this line from God of War Ragnarok. The ultimate combination of love is grief because eventually one of you is gonna die first. But just because the people that you go out with aren't good people doesn't mean that everyone isn't a good person. Because if you go to multiple places and it smells like shit and it seems like it's following you around, maybe you should take a shower. Like, sometimes the problem is genuinely other people. Sometimes the problem is you. In this case, Bree is the problem. So yeah. Kate Tiernan's writing is really accurate though. That's why it annoys me. That's why all the high school drama annoys me because I went to high school. I don't want to go back. um I need everyone aware of magic to give Morgan a break. I already stated why, as with Rue. Give her a break. Tell her the things that she needs to know in order to make an informed choice, and don't assume the choice that she's going to make. I don't know. Also, Robbie, her best friend, says that he doesn't feel like they're on an even playing field anymore. There's nothing inherently wrong with that statement. It's just, it bothers me for some reason because to me it reads like when your friends get more success than you do and therefore you start hating on them and you don't like them. It is okay if it makes you uncomfortable, but to call it an even playing field annoys me, especially if you two aren't in the same industry. I have friends who are doing really well in life, and like I think one of them has like a Netflix show or something, or at least is a producer on it. I'm not in the film industry. I don't care. He's a really nice guy. I don't care that he's I guess quantitatively probably more successful than me. I don't care. Like if we had been closer in high school and he called me tomorrow and was like, "Hey, do you want to hang out?" Dope, let's do it. The only thing that makes it an uneven playing field is your emotions, Robbie. The only person who was ironically super understanding of her split heritage was her dad. But, had to get arrested. So, I've only got 2 book stacks left, which is really nice. Not sure what's going to happen because I have some things that have sequels in the next line of books, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do once I get past the stack after next because I'll still have sequels to read. I guess I'll just post those when I come to them. I don't know.